That's fine. What is good, Vibe Gang? Last dono of the night. Miss Nancy, shout out to you. Sally A. Hoedel interviews. They pretty much are interviewing her of a book that she came out with. It's called Elvis, Destined to Die Young. So I'm very interested in because the title kind of got me like, what's going on here? But I'm very interested to know. So shout out to you, Miss Nancy. I love you from the bottom of my heart. Shout out to you. I like this because it's more information let's call it fact. Because if Miss Nancy's giving me signs, because this woman is talking facts. It's not because this woman's talking haka-poop. And that's a fact. Federico, cut the beat. Sally A. Hoedel. I hope I say her name right. I am hoping I'm saying her name right. Elvis, Destined to Die Young. It is on you. Let's go.
In which some of the King's greatest fans gathered in Graceland, of course, his home, to celebrate his...
I don't know what happened there, but...
In which some of the King's greatest fans gathered in Graceland, of course, his home, to celebrate his remarkable life and career. So was he the greatest music star and pop culture icon of all time? Well, to help me answer this question, I'm delighted to welcome Sally Hoedel, who is the author of a fantastic new book.
I said it absolutely wrong. Hoedel. Wow. Excuse my French.
To welcome Sally Hoedel, who is the author of a fantastic new book about Elvis. And it's got a pretty tough title. It's called Destined to Die Young, but it's winning rave reviews. And Sally joins me now. Hi, Sally.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Program. Why did you choose the King as a subject for your book? Were you a fan?
I am a lifelong fan, and as a fan, I've always had a lot of the same questions after I've read all the books and the same things, that were never answered. And as a journalist, I wanted to delve into that. And I think what's remarkable is that one of the most important questions about Elvis is why did he turn to the prescription medication in the first place? Right. And, that has never been asked or answered. And by exploring that and exploring some of his health issues, which this book does.
See, this is what people are called, what is called out here, getting your facts straight, spending that time and doing your research and trying to figure out to find your own answer that you need by doing your investigation, however is the way that you do it. See, I like these type of people because these people talk about facts, and they're not talking about an imaginary story that other people want to invent about this man. They're not inventing this whole storyline about this man, how he was with women and all this. We're not doing none of that. It's called getting your facts straight. That's what it should be called. You can't speak if you don't have the facts in front of you, because anything less than the fact, then you're just making up stuff and you're coming up with stories that I don't want to hear right now. Facts.
Or answered. And by exploring that and exploring some of his health issues, which this book does, it reveals his humanity in a way that I don't think has been done before, because he is an icon, right? He's recognizable around the world, as you said, by his first name, and is recognizable as Coca-Cola and Mickey Mouse. But Elvis was a real person, and he's rarely given that opportunity anymore, I think.
Definitely. Yeah. We lost Elvis, we lost Prince and Michael Jackson, all potentially due to medication, really. And we'll get to the sad circumstances of his death shortly. But let's take a look at the front cover of your book. I know it's proving to be a bestseller already. There it is. And what a fantastic photograph you've chosen of Elvis for the front cover. Destined to Die Young. Well, when he was born, he was destined for greatness, wasn't he? I mean, what do we know about his early life, Sally?
Well, his early life was a struggle through poverty, the type of poverty that I think we rarely understand today. And it did influence him. And when we look at Elvis as a performer, he was motivated. He was creative. Obviously, he contributed, culturally to our universe in a way that no one ever has before. So it's hard to imagine that his main motivation wasn't to make music, but really those early years drove him. And his main motivation was to provide for his parents and to pull them out of poverty. And he did that. And he continued to do that through, a lot of health ailments that made it very difficult to be Elvis Presley. But he was so committed to being that provider. And those early years of struggle, they really laid that foundation for him.
And so was health and health issues a theme of his life?
Absolutely. And, this is a layer that has been buried for literally decades. By the time Elvis passes in 1977, he has disease or disorder in 9 of the 11 systems of the body. And they've often been completely set aside as the end result of the prescription medication use. But what my research shows is that
You heard that? That is called a fact. That is called a fact. He literally had 9. That is crazy. That is insane.
he has disease or disorder in 9 of the 11 systems of the body. And they've often
9 in the 11 systems of the body. You see how the media can just bend whatever they want to bend? See how much control the media has? It's sickening. It is sickening.
In 1977, he has disease or disorder in 9 of the 11 systems of the body, and they've often been completely set aside as the end result of the prescription medication use. But what my research shows is that at least 5 of those were present prior to fame, most likely since birth, so they're genetic in nature. And one of the reasons for that is that his maternal grandparents were first cousins. So that doubling of the gene pool, it created trouble for his mother, Gladys, and for several of her siblings. And we see it in Elvis, too. So
I ain't know that. Elvis, why you ain't telling me that? It don't matter. If they kissing cousins and you came out of that, then all the movies in the world that I've watched are wrong, buddy. And there ain't nothing wrong with you. Okay?
reasons for that is that his maternal grandparents were first cousins. So that doubling of the gene pool, it created trouble for his mother, Gladys, and for several of her siblings. And we see it in Elvis too. So when we have 4 and 5 family members dying in their 40s of heart, liver, lung issues, which is a lot of what Elvis was dealing with, it stops being a coincidence and there starts to be something there to it. So, that was kind of.
So because of that, he's been having these illnesses. He has hereditary sicknesses coming from his family. So the prescription medications were for his diseases that he had. That man still went on stage and sang through all that pain. I know people out there that get paper cuts and don't want to go to work. Stop playing with this, man. Look what he was dealing with. And these are facts. Look what he was dealing with. Y'all crazy. Do you have anything to say about this man?
It stops being a coincidence and there starts to be something there to it. So, that was kind of the launching pad for this research and this investigation.
So do we know what his symptoms were? Was he in pain? Did he have suspected heart attacks? What did he go through before fame hit? Do we know?
Absolutely. Well, it starts with something that sounds as simple as insomnia, and he was a lifelong insomniac. And there's only a few things that can usually cause that in children, but he had it from a very young age. And it was the first ailment for which he turned to medication. And it worked, it solved his problem. And then it turned to things like Dexedrine, which also helped and solved problems. And looking through the historical context of the time, a lot of these things weren't seen as dangerous. Dexedrine until almost 1970 was thought to have the same addiction level as caffeine. So he found relief from many of his ailments in these medications. And unfortunately, the medication is all that's known and not the ailments. But we know he had a serious colon problem that caused a lot of pain. We know he had an autoimmune disorder, which, never would have been recognized probably in the 1970s. They're hard to diagnose today. But we know he had hypogammaglobulinemia, which basically means he had a difficult time fighting infections. perfection. So when he's repeatedly sick in the 70s on tour and they might have to cut a show short or cancel a show, he really is ill during some of those times. And yes, the prescription medication also became a problem, but he was certainly self-medicating through a lot of this pain, through a lot of this disorder. He had a liver and lung issue that we know he inherited most likely from his maternal line. I've traced that up his family tree, along with a number of other things.
Perhaps, therefore, his reputation has been unfairly tainted with those images of him at the end of his life. This idea.
Listen, this is crazy. This is crazy. I knew he was sick. I knew he had a lot of issues. But for me to hear this and then go back to listen to these people talking about he was a pill addict and all this other crazy stuff. Oh my God. That is crazy. But every picture, every video, everything you've seen of this man, he's got a smile on his face like he's fine. That's the problem. He was too strong for you people's brain to comprehend. That's what it was. He didn't show his pain.
Reputation has been unfairly tainted with those images of him at the end of his life. This idea of a bloated superstar hooked on medication, basically a junkie hoovering up burgers. Left, right and centre, yeah. That's an unfair characterisation. This is a great artist who in the end succumbed to natural illness.
Without question, there is so much truth in that. Elvis has long been looked at through the lens of sensationalism and through the narrative of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And again, he was a male in the 1970s. He did not want to appear weak to even those around him, let alone his fans, right? So he hid so much of this and again, medicated his way through this kind of fame that no one had ever experienced before. And because he was so famous and because he passed in the way that he did, again, it's just lent itself to sensationalism time after time after time. And even as a young girl, always reading about Elvis, I would see that. But as a journalist, I wanted to explore it because I do believe Elvis is a historical figure. I believe he deserves the same kind of analysis as a Henry Ford or a George Washington because he shifted our culture in such a big way. So
I shifted our culture in such a big way. Understand what this man has done for the culture. I like her. She's a fact checker. See how much stronger it hits when you have the facts behind you. This man has been sick since he was a child. He's been medicated since he was a child. 9 out of the 11? That's crazy. He didn't show it. He did not show it. He gave you performance after performance. Every time that camera was in front of this man looked like a superhero. Look what he was going through without nobody knowing. That's crazy.
Or George Washington.
Definitely.
Because he shifted our culture in such a big way. So I just wanted to give him that.
Definitely. He's the Shakespeare of pop music. He probably the first global musical icon, you could argue. And he set the template for everything, whether it's the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, you name it, And of course, he was the first to do it. Very sad that he had these health issues for his adult life. Did the illness in any way drive him? I mean, it's a perverse thought, but did it in some way prove to be a factor in his success, that because he faced these battles, he became very determined?
I think you could say that about his poverty and about his experience with fame and certainly his experience with illness too. I have long said that Elvis was the best interpreter of song, right? Like when he sings Kentucky Rain, you feel like he's walking in the rain in Kentucky, and the same thing with In the Ghetto. That song was originally offered to Sammy Davis Jr. and Sammy Davis Jr. said, no, I didn't experience that life. Elvis did, because he knew the type of poverty that Elvis had lived through. So I think the pain of these ailments and continuing to be Elvis Presley through such pressure and such odds absolutely allowed him to connect with his music and his fans, in a much more personal way. And he was very connected to his fans. And I think people forget that. He would talk to them and meet them at the gate, and he knew them by name, many of them. They were very important to him.
Sally, will we ever get to the truth? And I know that you explore this in exhaustive and fascinating detail in the book, but will we ever get the truth about the circumstances of his death?
Well, it's a big question, because what I really stumbled upon that surprised me more than most of it was that just how much privacy is still around Elvis as the most public figure, right? The most recognizable man on the planet. Almost everybody who's ever known him has written a book about him. And yet there was this layer and level of privacy that it was ensured around him. And certainly, he has family members living at Graceland with him. His father is his manager, his accountant. So he has so much privacy within that bubble that makes the truth also difficult, to get to. But I do think that this book comes as close as we're going to get in terms of his death, because it does explore the health ailments that he really was dealing with. So when they talk about all the medication that was there, yes, some of it became a problem, but a lot of it was also there for a real reason. And we need to talk about that too.
Finally, Sally, do we know how fulfilled he was in his career creatively? Because many think that he was sort of encouraged by his management to make so many of those feature films, and also even the choice of music that he performed. I mean, we can agree that he was an unparalleled singer and performer, but some suggest that he'd like to have performed more complex and challenging music, stuff that's closer to jazz than rock and roll. Is there any truth in that?
Yeah, I think there is truth in that. And I think, by exploring his health issues, I came to understand his struggle with poverty, but also his struggle with his manager, the Colonel. Because when you understand how poor he was and that his main objective was to pull his family out of that poverty, then you can understand that the Colonel was kind of in charge of the business and making the money deals, and Elvis was the creative guy. So when he's offered these projects, it's hard to say no to $1 million deal when he grew up with nothing. So when you can understand that, it's also why he pushes himself so hard in the 70s when he's clearly ill and clearly needs to stop, but he's still focused on being a provider. So those themes run throughout his story along with the illness, which is why this book is very much so about his life just as much as his death, because it's how he struggles with all of those things. And yes, the few times that he goes against the Colonel is when Elvis made the best music. So there's definitely truth in that.
That's a fact. She's a smart cookie. She's a smart cookie, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna buy the book. I need to purchase that book ASAP. Absolutely. I got 2 Elvis books that I'm in the middle of right now that was sent by you guys, and I appreciate it, and I love it. I need to get hers. That is amazing. I love her attitude towards Elvis because it's more of a factual attitude than it is anything else. Because she's done so much research on Elvis that she's a good person to have a conversation with, on a factual conversation with, because she sounds like she knows what she's talking about.
Just as much as his death,
because
awesome. It's how he struggles with all of those things. And yes, the few times that he goes against the Colonel is when Elvis made the best music. So there's definitely truth in that.
Sally, my favourite Elvis song is A Little Less Conversation. What's yours?
That's a great one. Mine is Always on My Mind.
Oh, classic.
I like that
Absolutely
one.
Brilliant stuff. Sally, congratulations on the release of the book.
That one.
It is called Destined to Die. It's by Sally Hoedel, and that's spelled Hoedel. It's, as I said, winning rave reviews. Destined to Die Young, sorry, forgive me. Can we just, Faye, give us another still of the book, please, if you don't mind? Destined to Die Young. There you go, the life of the great Elvis Presley. Thank you.
That's a good spot to stop it right there. That's a good spot to stop it. Listen, Miss Nancy, this is amazing. This is exactly the type of content that a lot of these people need to start listening to. People that have done their research, people that have done their fact checking. Those are the ones that know the truth. But everybody else wants to go listen to the people that only heard a rumor. All they're doing is pushing around a rumor. I love you guys, and I love Elvis. I'm going to talk to you guys tomorrow. I got more donos. Thank you. This concludes Dono Night. I appreciate you guys. I got another batch coming tomorrow. I can't wait. I got some goodies coming. I can't wait. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that. I love all of you guys. Have a great night. I'm going to talk to you guys tomorrow. Peace. Perfect.